I hate language learning. I hate memorizing vocabulary lists and conjugations, only to be completely unable to communicate with the native speaker. I hate spending days and months and years of my life trying to acquire fluency in a language and feeling like I was making no progress, still being unable to hold even relatively basic conversations and constantly translating in my head. I didn't feel anywhere close to fluency. And indeed, I wasn't, and I'm still not. So when I heard about comprehensible input as a way to learn a language, I was intrigued because it promised to solve a lot of these problems. It promised to kill the slog of language learning, to make it enjoyable and engaging and, maybe most importantly, effective and efficient, and give you steps and goalposts to look at along the way and assess your progress. So I'll probably dive into the nitty-gritty of comprehensible input and why it works and how it works in a later video. But for now, comprehensible input is a way of learning a language that's similar to immersion, right? Which is the way that children learn their native language. They're immersed in it all the time, and they get exposed to a lot of input in that language. And so their brains, which are language learning machines, right, pick up cues from the environment and pick up just an understanding of the language, and they internalize it and eventually acquire fluency in the language. Now, the difference between immersion, which for language learners is where you generally go to a country where your target language is spoken and you live there for a while, the difference between that and comprehensible input is that with comprehensible input, you focus on input that is slightly above your current level of understanding. This way, you can acquire words and sentence structures that you don't yet know by using context clues in a similar fashion to the way that we all learn new words and phrases in our native language. Now, I understand. You're probably asking, what about the complete beginner though, right? You can't learn from context clues if you can't understand the rest of the sentence. And the way that comprehensible input solves this problem is that rather than resorting to memorizing and trying to translate to get a foundation in the language before you can really engage with native content, instead of doing that, they use context clues or they use like visual clues in order to make the input comprehensible. So, for instance, if I have an apple like this one, and I'm a Spanish learner. If I just say la manzana, just out of the blue with no context, you're going to be like, as an English speaker, I have no idea what that means, right? But if instead I have a picture of an apple or I have an apple and I say la manzana and I point to it, you as a viewer, your brain can make the connection between the word being spoken and the thing, the object. And in that way, you're able to sort of skip the translation, which leads to fossilization of a lot of bad habits and just really, it gets in the way of your ability to really acquire a language, to acquire natural native-like fluency. And your brain is able to associate the Spanish word with the thing and skip the intermediate step. So that's awesome. That's how you lay a foundation in the language, right? You learn nouns this way. And the beauty of it is that you can't only learn nouns, right? Because once you learn nouns, then you'll have enough context to understand other things, especially when there's a lot of visual cues, right? So if I'm running and I say, yo corro, your brain's able to make a link between the action and the word. And so in this way, you're able to acquire that vocabulary. And because you're using content that is a little bit above your current level in the language, then you always have enough context to begin to take in and understand the new words that you're learning. And so you're able to like build up over time in a very sort of smooth curve. I mean, it isn't easy per se, but it's both easier and more effective than certainly traditional language learning, and it has the potential to be more effective than even true immersion in a country. Yeah, pretty incredible. And so I've decided to use the platform Dreaming Spanish in order to achieve this goal. And Dreaming Spanish was really revolutionary because up until this point, if you wanted to implement comprehensible input as a language learning method, you had to go and find the input yourself. And tailoring content to your current to be just beyond your current level is tough, right? And it takes a lot of time away that you could just be engaging with the content and actually learning the language. So Dreaming Spanish has a bunch of videos and content that is engaging and is for every level of learner. And they've actually graded it. They have, super beginner, intermediate, etc. So you don't have to spend all that time trying to find content that fits your current level. You can jump right in. And that's what I intend to do. So over these next year or two, I'm going to be making regular videos to record my progress, and you'll be able to follow along and maybe join me along this journey and watch as I, hopefully prove to you guys that comprehensible input is a great way to learn a language. I guess the only thing left to do is to give you an example of my current level of Spanish. So let's do that. Hola, me llamo Aiden y soy de los Estados Unidos. En Idaho hoy la clima es muy bien. Hace mucho calor y hace mucho sol. El cielo está muy claro y no hay nubes. El año pasado yo estaba en el California Sur, en la Universidad de California Sur. Yo estudié inglés y pasé tiempo escribiendo y leyendo y aprendí mucho sobre la idioma inglés. Cuando estaba en la universidad, yo conocí a muchos amigos buenos y era un tiempo muy divertido. Puedo hablar sobre mi familia. Tengo 3 hermanos, 2 hermanos y una hermana, y sí. Mi comida favorito es no sé, me gusta la comida mexicana mucho y también la comida de Italia y Francia. Sí, no puedo hacer cosas en la cocina. No puedo cocinar muy bien, pero me gusta mucho y el año próximo pienso que yo voy a aprender más sobre cocinar y sí, voy a cocinar mucho en mi apartamento. Bueno, gracias para escuchar a mí y estoy muy emocionado para subir mi nivel de español y espero que en el futuro pueda hablar con los nativos y todos los hispanohablantes. Bueno, gracias. All right, so there's a little explanation of my current, Spanish levels, and I'll check back in 50 or 100 hours and we'll see how much improvement we made. I'll see you then.